Just fooling around with you here, folks. Welcome back. David on Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, and also Prepper University on YouTube. And it is July 27th, Thursday, July 27th. And we have Dusty here again. Say hello to everybody, Dusty, for those of you who can see and you're not just listening. Dusty, the stray cat. Well, she's not stray anymore because she just stays with us now. We have Helter here. We have Dragon here so far. Keisha is here. Who is this? The Saxon of Riverstone is here. And Dilo made it. He says, I made it. I got notice. You got a notification, you mean? It's about time. Bam says something from heavy metal. You'll never figure out what that is. Ha ha. I'm going to let everybody suffer. My guest here, Dusty, to try to help with the algorithm so that the YouTube bots don't completely smash my channel. And Anarchy, hi from steamy rural Minnesota. Is it very humid out in Minnesota today? And Legends is here, says hello. Paul Potato is here. Thanks for joining us here today, as we'll run over some things in the news, in the media, talk about a few things that are interesting, or hopefully they're interesting, things that have been missed or overlooked. Legends is here. 500 Magnum. That's a powerful revolver. Monkey is here. Made it today. Glad you were able to join us. So I call out a few people as they pop in here. I'm reading off. Cyberjack Senior and Preparedness Veteran says, hi, people. Grateful to everybody who popped in here today. I'm glad that some of you got some notifications. I still hear that a lot. I get a lot of messages after the fact telling me I never got a notification, sometimes even days later, saying, hey, I just got a notification, or, you shouldn't be getting a notification for a video 2-3 days later, especially if it's live, and especially as early as I set them up. I'm not setting them up like the day before, but I do set them up early in the morning because usually, we get up like between 5:30 to 7, depends. So I still have Dusty here keeping me company. She hasn't indicated that she wants to get down just yet. I don't know where her brother is, Daniel. And again, wanted to thank everybody who helped out with the GoFundMe for the stray cats. And I need to add Mark to the list. Thank you very much, Mark, for throwing your hat in the ring, so to speak, and helping us with our stray cat project on GoFundMe. And I put a link to that at the beginning of the conversation thread here. And who is this? Paul says, hello from the UK. And Bam says 500 Magnum could also be a lever gun. Lever, depending upon your pronunciation. Okay. So we'll get going here in a moment and take a look at some of the topics. And this is one that caught my attention right off because, as you all know, I've had a lot of issues with the IRS over the years, a lot of problems left behind for me from one of my exes, and they don't care who they torment, so they dug their heels into me pretty good, and they still do. Oh, Sis Dad is here. Sis Dad says hello from Front Range, Colorado. And this is on CBS News, and it says IRS says its agents will no longer make unannounced visits at taxpayers' doors. And we'll explain that here in a minute. I'll read part of the article and we'll talk about it. Cougar's here. Just got home from work, got stung by yellow jackets 25 times. They wanted me to go to the hospital, but my reply was no way. I choose life. Really? You got stung 25 times? That's awful. I've been stung. I don't know if I've been stung by yellow jackets. I've been stung by wasps and hornets before. And some of them will get, oh, if they're really riled up, they'll get you several times. They'll keep going. 500 Magnum says media keeps going on about aliens. It's another distraction to hide what they're really doing. Yeah, I don't think there's any aliens here. It's either a hoax or it's their own experimental aircraft. I don't believe none of that. But digging into this CBS News article about the IRS, it says the IRS on Monday said its agents will end most unannounced visits to taxpayers in what the agency calls a major policy change geared towards reducing public confusion and improving safety for its employees. Yeah, once upon a time in this country, they used to tar and feather the tax man because, you got to think about the mentality of somebody who torments someone who made a mistake by forcing them to pay more than they can. The announcement comes after some Republican lawmakers warned last year that new funding for the IRS would result in thousands of new agency employees that would boost the number of audits of middle-class Americans, even though the Biden administration said audit rates won't change for people making less than $400,000. Some on social media also warned without evidence that the IRS planned to arm agents, stoking fear among some taxpayers. They did buy ammunition. So explain that. The IRS noted that the new policy reverses a decades-long practice of IRS revenue officers who are unarmed. That doesn't mean they don't have armed officers, by the way, but just the guys who come and harass you are unarmed, visiting households and businesses to collect unpaid taxes and unfiled tax returns, but effective immediately unannounced visits will instead be replaced with mailed letters to schedule meetings. Now, that contradicts what it said in the beginning of this article when it says that they will end. Where is it? Here, let me put you down, Kitty. Sit on the desk. It says they'll end most unannounced visits. But now down here, they're implying that they're going to stop all of them. Effective immediately unannounced visits will instead be replaced with mailed letters. So which is it? You're going to stop it altogether, or you're going to stop most unannounced visits? Now, they imply that the revenue officers who show up at your door are unarmed. They do have unarmed agents, but they also have armed agents. So that's not exactly true either. It doesn't surprise me about them being a little shady here. All People has joined us. Hello, All People. The thing with that, and I've been subjected to this myself, is that they do have a practice of just turning up with no notice. The IRS will never call you. Also, the IRS does not have to answer your questions, which is why you need a tax attorney and an accountant if you ever have to deal with them, which most people cannot afford to do, unfortunately. They'll show up at your house and they'll show up at your job. So you'll be at work, and then 2-3 guys in suits looking like feds will show up. And are you so-and-so? It's like, can I help you? And then they hold up a badge from the Internal Revenue Service. And it's like, oh, what the hell? They like to corner you and they like to embarrass you like that. So now they're saying that they're going to cut back on that. They're implying they're going to stop it. And then, of course, Biden says that audit rates won't change for people making less than $400,000. I can't trust anything that he says. I don't believe just because Biden says that, it doesn't mean a damn thing to me. He hasn't been honest yet. Dragon says in the recent battle over the budget, one of the concessions the Republicans won was to take away Biden's funding for the 80,000 new IRS officers. Must be bearing fruit already. I don't know if they actually have taken that funding away or not. I know that they've been debating it and they've been trying to block that funding. They've been trying to block the funding. I don't know if they've been successful. Helter says this is because they're introducing CBDC, and of course that's cryptocurrency. No need for the agents. Magnum says the left blames the right blames the left, while their agenda, they're all in it together and working against the people. I try to read the comments out as much as I can for people who are just listening. And he goes on to say they keep us divided because we're easier to control that way. That's all very true. And Sistad says, unless you are Hunter Biden. Yeah, Hunter Biden, he gets a slide. And Stacy has made it. Thank you for joining us today, Stacy. We're talking about the IRS a little bit. This caught my attention. One, because it's inconsistent with how the language is misleading. Again, first they say that they're going to end most unwanted visits. Then they imply later on here, unannounced visits will instead be replaced. So they act like they're going to stop, and then they imply that, oh, well, not completely. And then they want to emphasize that unarmed officers show up at your house or your job. And yeah, that's the initial investigator, but that is not to say they do not have armed IRS agents. Just like there are armed postal workers. People don't realize, oh, they gave me an ad, get out of here. People don't realize that there is a branch of the post office that is armed. Dilo says, I'm listening only. Yeah, you're driving a rig, right? Because we do have a few people that drive and listen. And tying in with that, it's like I like making connections. This story, which is a complete fluff piece, because it's equivocation. It's equivocation at its best. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Equivocation, by the way, is, for those of you who are not aware, is telling the truth, but only enough of it to spin a narrative. So yeah, I'm telling you the truth, but I'm only telling you a piece of it that fits with my agenda so that you can't or are not interested in figuring out the rest. And this comes from USA Today. I'm surprised USA Today is still around. Newspapers are dying, though. USA Today was innovative because they were the first ones to really use full color on their front page splash. And if you remember the USA Today newspaper boxes, they were designed to be shaped like a television to appeal to television viewers who were interested in the news. A little innovative there. It says, no, 600 million of 1 billion Powerball jackpot is not going to the IRS. Fact check. I'm going to read this fact check, and then I'm going to tell you the truth about it, because that's not entirely true. The claim that the IRS collects 600 million of the 1 billion Powerball jackpot. A July 20 Facebook post claims federal tax collectors are in for a big payday. Congratulations to the IRS on winning 600 million in the Powerball lottery last night, reads the post from the conservative website For America. The post was shared more than 18,000 times in 4 days. That's really not a lot. Not anymore. Our rating, false. Experts say the federal income tax on those winnings falls between roughly 200 million and 450 million, depending on whether the lottery winner takes a smaller lump sum immediately or opts to spread the full amount over time. Winners would not owe 600 million in taxes to IRS. A single ticket sold in California matched all the numbers July 19th for the third largest Powerball jackpot in history. The winner has the option of taking either the full 1.08 billion spread over time or a single payout of 558.1 million, according to the Multi-State Lottery Association, which runs the Powerball game. This is not exactly true. Now, Magnum says the scumbag Woodrow Wilson, I believe, is when the corruption started becoming obvious. Okay. Paul says the tax machine grinds us into the ground and the oligarchs and big business pay next to nothing. And Keisha says that's still a lot of money to have. How much does one need? Well, most people who win the lottery end up broke because they have poor money management skills. There's a pretty interesting show out there, and you could probably find the repeats of it on the internet or on YouTube or on, whatever streaming service, How the Lottery Ruined My Life. Here's the trick. Okay. No, the IRS, the federal government, is not taking 600 million in taxes from the 1.08, but they would lose about 600 million. So the person who made that post on Facebook made the mistake of saying that that's all going to federal income tax. And then USA Today's fact checkers say false. because that's not true. If they did it over time, the 1.08 million, they would only pay 450 million to the federal income tax, right? Follow me along. So where's that other $150 million going? State, city, and county tax. So if they took it in increments, 1.08 billion, they would pay right there 450 million to the IRS. And then in California, of course, I believe California has a state, a city, and a county charge on lottery winnings, and it varies from state to state. Some states don't have a city charge, a city tax. Some states don't have a county tax. Some states don't have a state tax, but they all have at least one of them in there somewhere. So if they take the trickle down payments, which I don't recommend, because if anything ever goes wrong, you're not going to get your money. You may as well just take the lump sum. Most people do anyway. Because the IRS isn't getting that other 150 million doesn't mean they're not losing 600 million of it. So they told you the truth, but not exactly. See how that works? Bam says, what if you have a nonprofit organization? You don't have yeah, well, if you have a nonprofit, the nonprofit can't claim that lottery winning. It's still going to get taxed, even if it's nonprofit. If you were to donate it, you can only donate the winnings, not the ticket, as far as I understand it. I'm not an expert on that, but I do know how this part works. Preparedness says, oof, lottery is tax-free here. We just get screwed over in other ways. Yeah, indeed. Bam says, I would need it all. Yeah, it would be nice, but you're giving up basically, about 55% of it if you take a lump sum, give or take, depending upon the type of lottery. But again, you may not get your payments. We saw an example of that in Illinois some years back, where Illinois was actually suspended from making lottery sales because they had not been paying their winners for months and months. Dragon says, ironic how people who complain about the government keeping them down, but then they buy lottery tickets. Well, yeah, a lot of people are brainwashed into the dream of hitting it big on the lottery, and some people will invest a lot of money into it, and the odds are astronomical. The odds are insane of winning the lottery. And the bigger jackpots, which we're seeing massive jackpots now, are because they have actually made winning harder to create a larger jackpot to make it look more appealing. That's why it's bigger jackpots and they're taking longer and longer before a winner. We used to get more frequent winners with smaller jackpots. Some of you may remember. Now we're seeing insane numbers, but it's harder to win. You know, Johnny is here. He says, listening but not watching. Thanks for joining us today, Johnny. Monkey says, hope someone wins the lottery that's not in some states where your information is exposed, like in California, where the law has to show the person who won. Yeah, and some states require it, and some states allow for your anonymity. And I would prefer to not have anybody know, because everybody will be crying and begging. They'll all come beating your door down, asking for money for charities and asking for, oh, I'm a long lost relative and all kinds of BS that you wouldn't want to deal with. Magnum says they got Trump on all these charges. Well, it should be all of them. Yeah. Accusing people of things they themselves are guilty of. Monkey says, and I think you've had a better chance of getting struck by lightning, I guess they mean, than to win the lottery, if I remember correctly. That is correct. Struck by lightning. You have, with the new jackpot system that's pushing these numbers to up over $1 billion, which has happened several times over the last few years, You have a better chance of getting struck by a lightning twice than winning now. Magnum says if they really wanted to, they could make Trump disappear. It's another distraction. That's true. I believe that. But yeah, that's just a great example of the art of equivocation with fact checking. They fact checked it, and they fact checked what they wanted to be misleading. Not that 450 million out of 1.08 billion isn't already insane, which is 1,800,000. Okay, so $1 billion. But I think that's right, right? I could be looking at it incorrectly, but it's incredible. It's incredible that they try to do that. 450 million is already too much. That's crazy. That's already, I mean, think about it. That's like just a hair over 45% of your winnings going to the federal government. And then, like I said, the rest of it, which they probably misspoke or misunderstood on that Facebook group, that other 150 million is going to state, county, whatever in California. Helta says a friend of mine referred to lottery as tax on people who are bad at math. Yeah. And Magnum says take the guns first, due process later. Screw that guy. Now here's something that popped up in the feed that is a personal pet peeve of mine that I'm going to read here in a moment. Monkey says the person that won that money will just blow it all within 3 years since they've never been exposed to having that much. Well, I can understand splurging just a little bit, but most people are not good with money. They're not good with money management. They think they're going to be happy if they live this crazy like rap music video lifestyle, and it's not true. It's an illusion, and they make a lot of mistakes with the money. Very few people that win a big jackpot have got much to show for it after the fact. Most of them screw it up. Keisha says it's my understanding the lottery place takes out fees as well. Like if you win $1 million, you only get about 200,000. They do take a fee. I don't know how much. I don't know how big it is. Bam says I would get 50 super high end double rifles. Okay. Now let's see here if I can get this open. I'll show you this article, and this comes from an article or an agency called The Cool Down, and it says school janitor sparks outrage with image of lunchroom trash can as a former child who went hungry. This hurts, and it bothers me too because one of my big pet peeves is wasting food, which is something that most people, especially in Western countries, have a big problem with. Just reading through this really quickly, and for those of you who are watching, you can see the image there. One Redditor recently sounded the alarm about a problem in their school's lunchroom. The user, who claimed to be a night custodian, shared a photo of what they found in the trash during their shift: a large garbage can piled with individual milk cartons. About half of this 50-gallon trash can is full of perfectly good cartons of milk. They said, adding in a comment that the milk was still ice cold. Expiration is in 2 weeks. Schools waste a lot of food. Yes, they do. Even in my days growing up in the 70s and 80s, for the most part, those kids, they didn't eat the school lunches. They threw away probably at least 35-40% of it. A lot of the milk, if it's white milk, they never wanted it. They always wanted the chocolate. If the chocolate milk ran out, they didn't want it, or they'd throw it away. So this is true, and I'm sure it's even worse now. But you're dealing with a lot of mostly selfish, poorly trained children that are growing up in a throwaway society that do not appreciate what it takes to even produce the food in the first place. But you already know this bothers me a lot. The problem is sadly common. Another user who said she was a lunch lady at junior high shared her frustrating battle with her administration. The school I work for flat out refuses to give me a daily lunch count so I can try to minimize food waste. She said in her comment, instead, the administration tells me, don't worry, we budget for thrown out food. Yeah, because if they were to reduce that, they would get less from the Fed because schools get a lot of money and they waste a lot of it so that they can justify getting as much as they do. And that's a huge problem with a lot of government programs that have no oversight like this. Schools get money from the federal government, from the state government, from the county governments, wherever their school districts are. They get money from property taxes, they get money from sales taxes, and they get money from the lottery. It's a huge money pit, and they burn as much of it as they can so they can sit there and say, see, we need more, because many of these agencies will cut back if they're not using it. So yeah, they don't care about throwing that food away. Absolutely not. Magnum says America is built on freedom and our Second Amendment ensures that. You hope so. You hope so. They sure are trying to take that from you. Helter says kids need to realize that these are real people doing things for them. Janitors are not nameless, faceless robots without feelings or pride. Oh, they don't care. They have no respect for if these kids, majority of them, have no respect for their parents, they're not going to respect anybody else. Dragon says simple solution is close the cafeteria until these entitled little brats learn how to respect the facility and the janitors. Yeah, but this has been going on for decades. It's not going to get fixed that quick. And Cougar said just have two 24-ounce ice cold Guinness stouts to counteract the bee venom. Seems to be working. Love nature's remedies. Okay. I see. But wasting food is a huge pet peeve of mine. I really, it bothers me. Wasting food, public schools, the justice system are three big ones for me that really, really bother me. But yeah, you got untrained kids coming from undisciplined homes where they don't appreciate anything, don't care about anything, in a throwaway society where you just dispose of whatever you don't care about and move on to the next thing, anyways. And it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that so much food is thrown away in school cafeterias. The unfortunate part is that's your tax dollars at work. Again, federal money, and this is per student, by the way. The federal government pays per student per district. If there's a butt in that seat, they're getting money for that kid for that day. So federal money, state money, county money, sales tax kickback, and lottery money for this. That's your money at work. That's your tax dollars at work, folks. And Magnum wants to know what kind of lighters do you like to stockpile for SHTF? The big lighters are okay, though I prefer Zippos. Both. Mostly Bic, though, because we still use them anyway, so we can rotate that. And they are cheap, but over time, they will seep. If they've been sitting around for years, they might not do well. Monkey says these kids got to appreciate the fact that they get food while the third world countries' kids get little to no food. They don't care. You know what they'll tell you? That we need to send them money because that's what the school trained them to think. They do not care. They do not care. Now, here's a nice example of propaganda coming up here. Let's see. Oh, no, anti-propaganda. I said it backwards. It's not exactly propaganda. Fox News. It's not climate change that's causing heat waves this summer, but no one wants to explain why. No, they don't. Because we're on a climate change trip. And the one that makes me really sick is the Science Moms one. Science Moms, the commercials, pure propaganda. That's actually what I thought I was pulling up, but I'll talk about that another time. Science Moms is pure propaganda. They're not real people. They are actors pretending to be mothers, pretending to talk about climate change and solutions. It's offensive how stupid they think everybody is. I know people are not that smart, but it's still offensive. Now, this article says every summer heat waves inevitably hit the United States and other parts of the world, causing climate alarmists and left-leaning media outlets to demand dramatic, disastrous changes to the global energy system. Unfortunately, this summer is no different. On Tuesday, U.S. media outlets published a wave of stories about supposedly historic, quotation, heat waves in Europe and North America. For example, the Washington Post published an article titled Heat Waves in US, Europe Virtually Impossible Without Climate Change, Study Finds. Whose study and who paid for it? Similarly, Axios published a story titled Historic and Enduring US Heat Wave by the Numbers. Although certain parts of the United States have undoubtedly experienced strong heat waves this summer, there is no reason to believe these weather events are evidence that the world is hurtling towards a climate change catastrophe. In fact, the best available evidence suggests that heat waves recorded a century ago were more problematic than anything we're seeing today. Government researchers have been tracking heat waves for more than 100 years, according to data from the U.S. Climate Change Science Program, which is made available by the Environmental Protection Agency. The annual heat wave index for the contiguous 48 states was subsequently higher in the 1930s than at any point in recent years. In some years in the 1930s, it was 4 times greater or even more. But you can pay enough scientists to lie about their studies. Keisha says, I think of those of us who have been without hate food waste. Oh, yeah, I can agree to that. Dragon says the good news is we can prevent it from getting worse, and the bad news is we won't. Well, the solutions that they have for preventing things from getting worse make things worse because that's not really the agenda. And let me see one more here. Magnum says it's over 120 in Death Valley. I believe God has. Does anyone else live there? And Preparedness says climate change is big business. Just know these recent heat waves would be monopolized or new. Yeah. But as I pointed out before, you got 3 types of scientists. You got scientists that said everything's like this. You got scientists that will say everything is like that. And then you got the ones in the middle that'll say, how much funding can I get? I'll make it either this or that. It's really easy. It's really easy to find a group of scientists to agree with whatever you want. And there'll be an equal number or more that oppose it, but you won't hear from them. Donna says the milk was probably the healthiest thing on the plate. Very likely. Helter says big oil denies it and pays Congress to do so as well. And Stacy said, "Do you hear about the genetically modified mosquitoes that supposedly Bill Gates released in Texas and Florida, and now people have a rare case of malaria? I don't know if it's true, but do you think it is?" Yeah, I talked about that a little bit before, Stacy. They released the mosquitoes, and I don't know if people are getting malaria from it, but I know it was pointless to release those mosquitoes because it can't work. They released mosquitoes that have been altered so that they're not capable of reproduction to trick other mosquitoes into mating with them, as if nature can't figure that out. Now you have twice as many mosquitoes running around biting people, and the original ones are going to find the right ones to reproduce with. They're not going to reproduce with genetically modified mosquitoes that are not capable of reproduction. It doesn't make sense. Plus, you put more into the atmosphere. It's foolish. Plus, the reason we have so many mosquitoes is because your pesticides and your herbicides that you use on the sides of the roads to kill weeds and such kill all of the natural predators for the mosquitoes. So you created the problem, and then you make an even bigger problem to try to fix it. It doesn't make any sense. It's like the old woman who swallowed a fly. If you ever read that book, I don't know why she swallowed a fly, and then she swallows a frog or something to kill to eat the fly, and then she swallows a cat to kill the frog, and you keep swallowing something bigger that causes more problems. Chris says climate change is a scam to control the population. Bam says it's not the first time Kill Bill releases mosquitoes. Yeah, he's got an issue with mosquitoes. Something wrong with that guy. Magnum says California really has some terrible laws as well. They're very hostile towards freedom. I feel sorry for the patriots that live there, though there's no such thing as a free state, just less restrictive. Yeah, because we don't really have freedoms. We have privileges, and some states are far worse than others when it comes to that sort of thing. I just think it's nice that an article is being made, Fox News or not, where they're saying that historically, and here's where you can look up the data, we are not in a heat wave. We've had much worse. And that the worst examples from the last 100 years since they started recording were in the 1930s. That's important to point out. But, you're not going to hear too much about that. Yeah. What is this? Monkey says, I remember that book about the woman and the fly. Yeah. And the last thing she swallows is a horse, and I think it kills her. And Preparedness says, you want to see a super mosquito, go to Poland. I have never been to Poland. I have never been to Poland. Now, this one is important, and I love reading between the lines in news articles, which is part of the reason why I do this. And Chris chiming in, we don't have absolute freedom, but better than living in the rest of America compared to California, New York, Washington, and Oregon. Yeah, I can agree with that. And Preparedness says you're free to do whatever the government tells you to. Quote by Bill Hicks. Now, this is a stupid story, but it's important, and I'm going to walk you through why it is. Okay? And this is another one on Fox News, but this is something you can find this article on, choose your poison. It doesn't matter. Naked California woman arrested near San Francisco Bay Bridge after shooting at cars. All right. Naked woman in California arrested on Tuesday after officials say she began firing her gun at cars near San Francisco Bay Bridge. And you can see the little video clip here, and that's her in the background. And they blur it so that you can't see her nudeness. Officials with California Highway Patrol said the agency began receiving calls about a reckless driver around 4:40 p.m. You see the blurb there? That's her, or I'm pointing with the arrow. According to KTVU, the same caller later said the woman got out of her car while still clothed and began yelling at other drivers, re-entered her car only to stop again past the toll plaza, then excited, completely naked officers said, exited. Sorry, I read that wrong. The woman began firing a gun while pointing it at other cars. All right. And this is her running down the middle of the street shooting. Right here. Why is this important? This is very important. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Magnum says our friends in Michigan are really getting treated very hostile and as well. They're getting treated hostilely everywhere. Again, we have privileges, not freedoms, because the government can and will take it away at any time. They can and will take it away at any damn time. And Keisha made, where is it? A donation to the channel. She says, thank you, and made a $2 donation to the channel. No, thank you, Keisha. Very much appreciated. Very much appreciated. Goes a long way. Again, any donations, they help out a lot with our Stray Cat project. Chris says San Francisco proves itself as Gotham every day. Preparedness says I would actually expect to see that in California. And Loyal Tangi says, I'm in California. I'm in California. Now, why is this important? It's hard to tell from this picture, okay? Because, it's shrunk down right here. This is a black woman. The article does not tell you that at all. None of the articles that I looked at, here she is again. None of the articles that I looked at tell you that this is a black woman who stopped her car in the middle of the freeway and jumped out naked and just started shooting randomly. I don't think she hit anybody. I don't think she hit anyone, but she was just randomly shooting. Now, If this person was Caucasian, then the title would be Naked White Woman in California runs down San Francisco Bay Bridge firing at other cars. Was this racially motivated? And somewhere in this article, it would say something that black motorists were passing by, which is probably likely. That's probable. But if this person was white, it would tell you it was white. It would tell you she was white in the description. And it would tell you it was white in the article. And it would question whether or not there was racial motivation. But she's not. She's a black woman. And they never tell you. And yeah, the fact that it's a naked woman running around shooting is enough. I don't need to know if she's black or white. My problem is that if she was white, they would showcase it. That's my issue. Am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong. Every article I've looked at, I just pulled this one up for the purpose of doing this description of this talking point. Every article I've looked at about 5 of them. They do not tell you what color this woman is. Think about it. And Magnum says definitely not wrong. They would showcase it. They would showcase it if she was anybody else. And I've seen this before in Georgia. Not a woman, it was a dude. This is about a year ago. You know, off topic a little bit, just a little personal story. Driving through Lithonia, Georgia, with my wife, and we pull up to a stoplight, and a guy is there with a backpack. He's got a backpack. He pulls his shirt off, right? Pulls out a semi-auto pistol. You know, basic magazine-fed pistol, probably a 9mm. I didn't get a good look at it. Walking around in the traffic, pointing the gun at people. He didn't shoot. He was just standing. He was just walking and pointing it and looking all intense and looking around shirtless. And you know, the light changed and we left. And I got on the phone. I called the police, and I was on hold. Excuse me. I was on hold maybe 20 minutes before a person answered. And then I reported it. I told him what corner it was on and what the guy looked like and everything. And it was a black guy. It was mixed, maybe, because he was kind of light skinned, if you know what I mean. So probably mixed, I would guess. But yeah, he was just walking down the road and pointing the gun at people in the middle of the traffic. It's like, what the hell is this guy doing? No explanation. Don't know if they found him or anything after 20 minutes went by. Probably not. He was probably long gone. Monkey says they'll try to find out if the white woman was affiliated with a hate group. Yeah, they'll be looking at yeah, they would be looking through her Facebook. They would be checking her Twitter, any social media she has. If she ever put a little heart icon on something that was questionable 8 years ago, they'll find it. Preparedness says, who should be looked at? The editor? Where do these directives come from? I'm sure that all of these news agencies have been instructed to tone that down if it's a certain group of people, or to blow it up if it's another group, because the narrative in the Western world, not just in the United States, but in Europe as well, is to focus on the concept of racism, to blow it up, But that's why I wanted to talk about that. I thought that was pretty important, actually. It's important because of what it doesn't tell you and how it would be looked at otherwise. And I think that's really important for people to consider. And I've got another piece here I'm going to show you, which I think is pretty interesting. And it's actually Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe here. I've got to fix the audio first as I pull it up. And then Chris says they always generalize everything to the race and not the individual actions. Yeah, because I'm fine with it just saying it was a naked woman. If I didn't know, it would be different for a different group. It's her specific action. Something's wrong with her. Something's wrong with her. They brought her for a psychological evaluation. The article goes on to say that's what needed to happen. And I don't have a problem with them not saying it if they wouldn't say it in a different instance. And then Helter says, typical of the news media trying to divide the country. Yeah, with racism. Now, I want to show this, and this is a little snippet from a Biden speech where he has a Freudian slip. I'm having a little fun with this here. A Freudian slip and kind of accidentally tells the truth. So I'll get on with that in a minute. Keisha says, did you see the video where Mitch McConnell totally blanked on his speech? No, I didn't see that. And then Chris says, Hunter Biden going to get a plea deal that makes him immune from future investigation. I need one of those. Come on, give me a break. Anyway, I think you can hear this. So I'm going to go ahead and play this and see what he says. And he doesn't correct it and no one catches.
There's still so much more to do. Improving our mental health system means addressing the 3 C's: coverage, care, and causes. Today, we took a big step in coverage. Now we need to keep expanding care. For example, by increasing access to telemedicine, expanding our mental health workforce, doctors, therapists, and counselors, expanding it. We need to address prevention and the root cause of the pain and trauma that a lot of people are feeling, like the loneliness and isolation, social media and online bullying, gun violence, and we're still feeling the profound loss of the pandemic, as I mentioned, of over 100 people dead. That's 100 empty chairs around the kitchen table.
I think we finally got honest numbers for the C virus. Did you catch that? And nobody corrected him, and he didn't correct himself. Yeah, Chris says Joe Biden is such an embarrassment. He really is. Social media bullying. We need committees to expand healthcare because of social media bullying. There goes some more of your tax dollars. But he said during the pandemic, over 100 people died from the C virus. Is that the real number? Finally? Did he have a Freudian slip? And not all the padded numbers where, you get run over by a truck and they test to see if you had the C virus before you were killed. And then they put C virus as cause of death like that. Bam says honest numbers are 0. Yeah. And Magnum says, did you ever watch other prepper channels to gain ideas about survival? MD Creekmore has some very good ideas. I'm not familiar with MD Creekmore. Honestly, I haven't looked at other prepper channels in a long time. I kind of got really disenfranchised with them because of how many of them pander to sensationalism. I can do without all the doom and gloom BS. You know what I mean? Monkey says, incoming, the White House PR says Biden didn't mean 100. Yeah, I'm sure. But that's what he said. And he says it multiple times and everybody applauds and nobody seems to have caught that. And I'm like, yeah, he said over 100 people. 100 people are not at the dinner table. That's a big family. I got a kick out of that because of his, and I'm like, is that a Freudian slip or is he just reading the teleprompter wrong? Because, he doesn't write speeches. That's impossible. Unbelievable. This guy that he is the commander in chief. It's scary. Well, he's the puppet in chief. I've got a new title for him. Anarchy says not to defend him, but I heard 100 people a day, nor just not just 100 in total. Listen again. I think he said 100 a day after 100. Oh yeah, did he? If he did, I missed it. And Helter says he should be in a dementia ward, not leading the largest democracy in the world. Yeah, we're not really a democracy either, but we're supposed to be a constitutional republic. But you know, hey, what are you going to do? Bingo. Oh, did I miss a comment, Bingo? He says you skipped my comment. Well, you know, it slides up, so I don't always see it. Let me see if I can find it. Bingo said a month or so ago, over 500 scientists got together and did a press release stating climate change is just climate trends, not caused by people. Funny you don't hear one word about it. Now it's buried. Yeah, I believe it because, again, you have scientists that will agree, you have scientists that will disagree, and you have scientists that are for sale. And it's not hard to find a group of people that will agree with your narrative so that you can showcase them and then ignore everybody else, which we see a lot of in politics, unfortunately. Now this, since we've been talking about so-called health care recently, and again, I say health repair, because healthcare is an oxymoron. You're not actually getting healthcare at the hospital or at the doctor or by taking medications. That is a band-aid. That is health repair. Healthcare is taking care of your body, exercising, diet, and so on. And there's this this new prescription medication called Wegovy, and I've seen the commercial for it, and I might get in trouble here because of the music in this commercial. And I will point out, I will remind you, whenever you're watching a commercial, it's actors. These are not actual people who have taken this product. They are actors. If they use real people, they have to tell you. And I think the only company actively doing that right now is Chick-fil-A, when they have their commercials where they say paid comments from an actual customer. They've got to tell you if it's a real person. So whenever you see any of these commercials, like I pointed that out with Stacey Abrams and her nurses, they were talking about children and gun violence, and they weren't really nurses, they're actors. It's really important. Stuart says, let me guess, the live stream's just about over. I'm sorry, Stuart. I'm sorry. It'll be saved, though. Magnum says, I think it's a good idea, too, to listen to other opinions because no one knows everything, and there's always somebody that has and is thinking about something you haven't. That's true. And I hate the term gun violence. Guns don't commit violence. People do. Yeah, let's go, Brandon. Yeah. Yeah, people do. You know, rocks weren't banned when Cain killed Abel, although I don't think it says how he was killed, just for the point. But I'm going to play this commercial ad for you, and I'll tell you why after I run it. Preparedness says adverts are NLP masterpieces, most of which follow the same pattern. We have a unique situation in the United States where it is, they advertise prescription medications, and that's scary. And I'm going to play this for you. And so listen to it. It's only about just over a minute long, about a minute and a half almost. Pay close attention to the side effects.
I've always had trouble with my weight.
Now with Wegovy, I've seen real change. I've lost weight, and I'm keeping it off.
Remember, these are
Wegovy have
actors.
reduced my appetite.
They didn't take the medication.
Wegovy is the #1 prescribed once-weekly weight management medicine for adults with obesity or excess weight with related medical conditions.
People taking Wegovy lost an average of 35 pounds.
I've seen him
Some
before.
lost over 46 pounds. Wegovy shouldn't be used with other semaglutide-containing or GLP-1 receptor agonist medicines. Don't take Wegovy if you have a personal or family history of medullary thyroid cancer, multiple endocrine neoplasia syndrome type 2, or if you are allergic to Wegovy. Stop taking Wegovy and get medical help right away if you get a lump or swelling in your neck, severe stomach pain, itching, rash, trouble breathing, or swelling of your face or throat. Serious side effects may happen, including pancreatitis. Gallbladder problems may occur. Wegovy may cause low blood sugar in people with type 2 diabetes, especially if you take medicines to treat type 2 diabetes. Tell your provider about vision problems or changes, or if you feel your heart racing while at rest. Depression or thoughts of suicide may occur. Call your provider right away if you have any mental changes. Common side effects are nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, constipation, stomach pain, headache, tiredness, upset stomach, dizziness, feeling bloated, belching, gas, stomach flu, and heartburn. Some side effects can lead to dehydration, which may cause kidney problems.
Wow.
Wegovy helped us lose weight and keep it off.
Check your cost and coverage before talking to your healthcare provider about Wegovy.
I don't mean to laugh, but that is insane. That is insane. A Loyal says greasy rectal discharge was a side effect. Yeah, I mean, it basically says as much. Preparedness says probably makes you sterile. I wouldn't be surprised. Preparedness says any more side effects? Yeah, there were. That's just the most common ones. If you go to the website, it's like a mile long. Because remember, they only have to tell you the most common side effects in the commercials. Just making the point. Bam says sounds safe and effective. Loyal says not even thin. Well, they're trying to appeal to the more heftier person. Those people in the commercial were not obese, but they were overweight. And again, actors. They are not actual Wegovy. I said Wengovy. It's Wegovy customers. They're not. They're paid actors. Keisha says that's why I chose not to take it. Yeah, don't take any medications. Monkey says literally 75% of the commercials just talking about the warnings of the pill. Yeah, and all we get is insurance and medication commercials in the U.S. anymore. It's insane. It's either this stuff or Geico. And God, those side effects, it's insane. How about this? Diet and exercise. Diet and exercise. I know it's not that easy, okay? It really isn't. It's harder to build than it is to destroy. It was real easy for people to destroy their bodies by being out of shape in the first place, unless they have an underlying medical condition, they can't help it. But it's harder to fix it once the damage has been done. And so they give up. Oh, I'll just take a pill. Yeah, and you get a lump in your throat, and you get diarrhea and dehydration and vision problems and cramps and gas and suicidal thoughts and on and on and on. The list is insane. It's like you're going to suffer all that to get out of doing 30 minutes a day of cardio, to get out of putting down that third ice cream cone. Okay? It's insane. Bam says those in the commercial have high fat percentage. Yeah. And then New York Patriot says, I love how they say don't take X if you're allergic to X. Well, how would you know if you are if you've never taken it? Yeah, and by that time, you've got permanent damage somehow. You've got trouble breathing. You have heart palpitations for the rest of your life because you were adversely affected by the medication. You won't know that you're allergic until you have taken it. It's crazy. But this is what people will take this pill. They will make millions off of this pill. And like I said, I know it's not easy to diet and exercise, although once you get into a routine of it and it becomes a second nature to you, you just do it. My wife, when she gets home from work every day, we go work out together for like an hour. We have our weight training rotation. We have our cardio rotation, and it's just natural for us. Because you got to get into the habit. Preparedness says people will do anything apart from exercise. But yeah, you have to get into the habit. You have to get into the routine. When you've been doing something long enough, it's a second nature. But I also know people, like you said, people will do anything apart from exercise. Preparedness is right because people are lazy. And I don't know if anybody here has diabetes. I've worked with diabetics before. And tell me if I'm wrong, before you're even allowed to talk to the endocrinologist, you have to sit through a class first that talks about what? Diet and exercise. Every person with diabetes I've ever worked with What are the two things they don't do? They don't follow their diet and they don't exercise. Oh, I'm too tired. Oh, it's uncomfortable. Oh, I can't get used to it. Oh, why should I give up my fried chicken? Whatever the problem is, they get a million excuses all the way up until toes start getting chopped off. And then you're screwed, because that's just a chain reaction from there, and it's going to keep getting worse. And I know I sound like a total ass. Somebody who's diabetic is going to get mad, but am I wrong? Am I lying to you? Sometimes you need, honestly, sometimes you just need somebody to be straight with you and tell you the truth. Monkey says there were people in my family that had diabetes. But yeah, most people who are diabetic, they do not follow their diet and they do not exercise. And a lot of times, unless you got a real serious problem, that's enough to keep you off the medication, especially if you're type 2. And Bam says, pretty sure you can cure diabetes by changing your diet. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Unless there's something really genetically wrong, a lot of times your diet and exercise is enough. Especially, like I said, type 2, which is more of a developmental type. And Magnum says fried chicken's hard to give up, though. I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, who wants to give up something that they enjoy? I get it. Who wants to give up something that they enjoy? But if it's going to give you a better quality of life, then you have some decisions to make. And most people will make the wrong ones, because they don't want to be bothered, because they're lazy, because, whatever. They'll come up with a million excuses not to do it. A million excuses. And, a couple more comments here. Monkey says, oh, hell, break up the workout segments, 15, 20 minutes in the morning, 15, 20 after work or in the evening. Yeah. I mean, if that's all you can do, it's all you can do. If all you can do before you're winded is 5 minutes, do 5 minutes until you can do more. But getting people into that mindset and getting them comfortable with that is hard. It's hard because they're so used to blowing things off. Keisha said, I had a friend that had type 1 and the doctor told him you couldn't do anything for it. So he ate what he wanted, went blind. Wow. That's awful. That's awful. NY Patriot said, I unfortunately take one of those advertised meds, but it's not for weight loss. I wish you had an alternative. I do. I can't tell you what to do. I am not a doctor. I am not a doctor. I have to point that out before I get a medical misinformation strike. But I always encourage people to find an alternative if possible. Not everybody, there are exceptions to the rule, and I get it. And Magnum says, all I drink is water anymore. Never cared for alcohol and have given up soda. Yeah, and that's not bad. And once you've gotten into that mindset and you've been away from it long enough, you don't care. You can let it go. I never drank. My wife and I, we've never been into that, so we don't drink anyway. But soda, I rarely, maybe once in 5 or 6 months, I'll have a soda. If I just feel like it for some reason, but I don't care about that at all. And Keisha says, I have started taking the stairs instead of the elevator. That's a good way. And Sistad said, wow, he completed a sentence. You picking on me, Sistad? And Legend says, yeah, Ozempic has become very common. But I mean, this is a clinical weight loss drug. A clinical weight loss drug. It's something that most people don't need. You can find a way. Yeah, you work in an office building, take the stairs. You know what I mean? Something. You can find something. You can figure it out. There's always a way. There's always a way to work it in, if you care to do it. And then once you've done it long enough, it becomes a second nature. But it's hard to convince people of that because they expect instant gratification. We're an instant gratification throwaway culture. If you don't like it, throw it away. If it doesn't happen immediately, move on. And most of the time, something worth having doesn't come easy. You got to work hard at it. Delo says, I need to make a change. And Magnum says, my diet's usually hamburgers and fruit or pizza. I like pizza, though. I'll give you that. I wish I could eat it every day, but I don't. And then Legend says, unless I have a guest with me in the car, I always park far in parking lots. You see, it's little baby steps. If all that adds up, all of it adds up. And Magnum says, I'm not giving up meat completely. Well, if you don't want to, you don't have to. I'm not telling anybody to be a vegan or a vegetarian. I don't eat red meat or poultry. I haven't for decades. I wouldn't unless there was an emergency. I still eat dairy product. I still eat eggs. I'll still eat fish. But, and then what Stacy says, I love chocolate, but I eat it rarely. Sure. If you ate it all the time, it wouldn't appeal to you anymore anyways. You'd get bored. And Magnum says, I'd die if I were vegan. Well, vegan is taking things too far, in my opinion. You can't tell me if you can't tell me I can't have honey because it's taking advantage of bees. That's pushing it for me. And Legend says, for the record, never been fat. However, definitely feel for those who are. Okay. And New York Patriot says, I've tried many alternatives, but I will say eczema is a bitch. I understand. I can imagine. And with that, I'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you, everybody who joined us here this afternoon. Very much appreciated. Hope you got something out of the broadcast. Again, I'm live on Coffee Talk Live on YouTube and on Prepper University on YouTube, simultaneously broadcasting on both channels live. And thank you again to everybody who has thus far helped with the GoFundMe project for the stray cats. And there's Fluke Man, and he says, another late notification podcast. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry about that. I wish there was something I could do. But, it's whatever screwy business is going on with YouTube. And Monkey said there are mushrooms that have meat-like taste. Yeah, that's my understanding. But I'll go ahead and sign off. And hopefully we'll do this again soon, everybody.